Hello friends, family and other creatures of the sea, and welcome to this best of 5 between in the bottom right spawning as our blue Zerg player playing for the Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. And in the top left spawning as our red Protoss player playing for Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. Trigger is the up-and-coming Canadian Protoss player that recently joined Team Basilisk, as so far I believe their only player. He's a very interesting one. Trigger is someone that, well, doesn't apparently know how to block the opponent's hatch. Oh, this was a 15 hatch, so cutting one worker to get that hatch down at an appropriate time. Very cool play out of Scarlett. Anyway, Trigger is a player that initially was very aggressive, still is quite aggressive, but is getting better and better in those macro games. And in my mind has a very similar trajectory as to what MaxPax had in maybe 2019 or 2019 I would say, 2019 to 2020, where MaxPax back then was just an early game player, right? Very aggressive, overly aggressive to a fault at times, but quite quick. And it feels like it's the same here with Trigger. Trigger is quite quick and sometimes a bit overly aggressive. Always, whenever there's the choice between doing the passive thing or the more aggressive thing, we're always going to be seeing aggression out of him, at least 9 out of 10 times. So still just lacking a little bit in those longer late games as well. But we'll have to wait and see if he's going to be capable of fighting with Scarlett here. Scarlett is known historically to be quite good at late games, and also is known historically to not like Protoss quite as much. And, has played Protoss herself in the past as well. I think there's a very popular game that she played against Dongray Gu on Frost with an 8 gate taking out DRG, who at that time was a very solid Zerg player, and then also taking out DRG with Zerg, I think the game after, winning that series 2-1. Very cool stuff. It was an MLG 2014 in Anaheim. I remember that quite well because I was there as well, watching it from the crowd. Now Trigger here opening up with a quick warp gate, so not a star gate. Majority of the time. Ooh. Okay, that is very odd. Look at the timing here on this Stargate, okay? This Stargate went down at 2:29. That is a solid 16 seconds later. No, that's a solid 13 seconds later than it usually is. Usually when you see a Stargate coming out of a Nexus before core, it goes down the latest at like 2:16, 2:17. So this is going to be very delayed, partially because of the warp gate and maybe because Trigger just wasn't so keen on mining a lot of gas early on in the game. I don't quite know. But what I do know is that this is going to come as a bit of a surprise to Scarlett then. Because it came as a massive surprise to me, it's definitely going to come as a surprise to Scarlett. We see Scarlett already going in with a scout to the very far back. We have a third pylon on the way here. This pylon actually, I think, is a bit of a giveaway as to what's going on. You don't need this pylon yet if you're playing an actual Blink build or an actual Glaives build. You need a faster third gateway, and because you don't have an Oracle, you actually have more supply left over, so you don't quite need it yet. So it's quite interesting to see that being built in the wall, despite it being quite a big tell for the Zerg, if the Zergs are aware of that, of course. I'm never quite sure what Zerg players are aware of and what they're not aware of. Like, some players are really good at reading stuff, and others, they just kind of, they kind of make things up, it feels like, every now and again. There is no spore yet in the main. There's a spore being constructed in the natural. There's also 3 queens. You might get 2 worker kills here and take a little bit of hull damage. Actually, a decent chunk. That's actually quite a bit of damage here that's being dealt on that Oracle. 2 drones go down. This Overlord hopefully stays alive for Scarlett, otherwise she could be potentially in some trouble. Evo Chamber gets thrown down here as well, so we're going to see a quick rush into the melee weapons most likely. Getting quick range just doesn't make a lot of sense, and is also something we never really see. So just based on what I've seen in the past, I'm guessing this is going to be melee. And this heavy early game Link style that a lot of Zergs have been getting kind of fond of after Hero introduced those early Blink pushes that he was doing a lot. Oh, this is a crap ton of Links, by the way. That's 18 Links are being constructed. Queen's not quite in position to deal with these Oracles. Adepts are going to finish up their Shade and are mainly targeting down Links rather than going for drones. I think that's a mistake. I think 5, maybe 6 drones could have gone down here, but instead we have 6, 7 Links dying. I mean, surely it's better to target the drones here if you know you're going to lose your adepts already. I actually think this is a pretty sizable error here out of Trigger, who did manage to send the third Oracle across the map, is building 2 sentries as well at home defensively. We have a 5th gas coming in. This is a really weird setup, honestly, that Trigger is going for, and I don't really like it. I think the 4th base isn't going to be very fast. We're still only on 2 gateways. Like, just now going up to gateway 3 and 4. Just getting so much stack on these 3 bases, but this is a bad 3rd base because it only has 6 mineral patches and a single gas. If you're going to be playing this type of weird late 4th base style with a lot of tech on 3 base, it is definitely better to just get a 3rd base a little bit further forward. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck in your own sauce pretty much with your 4 gates and your, I don't know, just little gas, little income. I don't like it. It's going to expand to the 4th pretty fast. I mean, it's before the 6-minute mark, which definitely would be considered quite quick. Follows up with a Robo Bay. Not a huge fan of this. I really am just not a huge fan of this. Disruptor's not that good against quick melee upgrades. We are not going to be seeing any aggression whatsoever coming out of Trigger in the next minute or so, because he's just not investing into units that can put on any pressure. So it basically just has to be like sitting back and sitting at home. But then what are you going to go into? Like Colossus here? It's actually kind of possible just because Scarlett's early game has been quite poor as well. I mean, she's on 64 workers, only 5 gases. She's down in workers. Feels like she's almost all inning here. Baneling Nest on the way as well, +2 melee. Scarlett is afraid of something. I just don't quite understand what it is that she can be afraid of, right? Like, if you look at this, what is there really to be afraid of? There's nothing. And this Overseer is going to get that confirmation as well. So we have now a big round of drones. 14 drones were being added on. We have a 5th base coming in as well. We could start seeing some gases being added, perhaps an infestation pit. It's also completely possible that Scarlett decides to go for some type of baneling attack with +2. A little bit of a preemptive unsupply block here with 6 Overlords being produced at the same time. 6 Ravagers also on the way. And now Trigger starts moving out. 7 minutes and 30 seconds into the game with a tiny force. I mean, this is really not doing much of anything, I think. It perhaps makes you a little bit vulnerable to a push out. First Colossus is out right now. Second Colossus is on the way. Gas 7 and 8 are being taken as well right here for Trigger, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this position, really. Scarlett doesn't seem too keen on waiting for the +2 to finish, but if +2 does finish and Baneling start getting morphed in, I actually think Trigger is in a lot of trouble here. For now, though, he's having a pretty decent defense. I'm surprised by this attack. Seems like a little bit much now. Force Field's doing an okay job here, and the Colossus just kind of wiping down these links. So, yeah, not a super successful attack here. 6 more drones on the way as well. 9 more roaches coming in at the same time here. And yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of all of this. I'm just not a huge fan of all of this whatsoever. Gonna go up to 87 workers for Scarlett. No infestation pit yet. So despite all of those drones, I mean, what's going to happen with this money? You're just gonna sink it into more banelings and start rolling them in. I feel like maybe a slightly lower worker count would have been better. I'm thinking like 81, 82, 78-ish, you know? If you want to go for a tight timing with Ravager, Link, Bane, and +2, I think you can hit faster than this. We do have 2 Overlord drops on the way as well, which is maybe going to be useful, I don't know. At the same time, force fields need to be good here. They are going to be okay, but not good enough. Oh, more banelings rolling in right now. Might get the connections with these sentries. Look at that. +2 banelings dishing out so much damage against this army. And Trigger moving on the map, well, with what seemed to be a sizable force, but just getting completely blasted here. Scarlett with a lot of cash behind this. These banelings are going to connect with every single probe here. 11 workers do end up falling, as Pneumatized Carapace is also about to finish up right now. I already saw 2 Dropalords being sent out towards the left side. Could be for banelings, could just be for a cheeky link drop as well, but it is going to be banelings. Trigger will not be capable of moving out in the next 2.5, 3 minutes. A lot of his gas investment into those early sentries now completely useless. We'll need to tech into a Templar Archives and start start mixing in some Archons to go into a solid late game, but I'm not even quite sure if that is going to be possible here. Double Overlords are moving out right now, and, well, let's just hope for Trigger that these Overlords do not get too much damage done, because that could be very bad. Look at these Overlords being queued up, by the way. I love that. They're being queued up, and Scarlett right now is going to attack just before these Overlords hit. This way, look at the first person view here out of Trigger. So he sees this massive army. He's like, okay, I need the micro here. I need the micro. Is he paying attention to the minimap? No, of course he isn't. He's trying to stay alive here at the 5th. Now he's starting to lose a lot of workers in the natural. And now at the 3rd base as well. 32 workers are getting destroyed in mere seconds. And with that pretty much seals the deal. Scarlett doesn't need to attack into this anymore, but she can. She much rather fights on Trigger's side of the map right now than on her own side of the map, because then there is no time to reinforce anymore if you actually do end up losing a big chunk of your unit. So trade is going to happen in Trigger's base here. Oh my god, every single probe on the map is going to die. Poor probes. Oh my god, that Baneling just rolled through the probes. These probes saw their life flash in front of their eyes, and so will these Stalkers. There's like 3 Banelings for every single Stalker that's out right now. It's quite a lot. Scarlett barely falling in supply, going down to 170 against 86. Trigger is going to tap out in the next 3 seconds because this game is completely over. Fantastic Bane drops here coming out of Scarlett with some nice tricks as well, pulling the attention away at that 5th base with the massive attack, while the real damage was being dealt in the natural and in the 3rd base. Yeah, that was the 3rd base, right? The back one. Yep, it definitely was. I'm not quite sure what Trigger is still doing in this game. Is he still clicking? It would be possible he just taps down and looking for a playlist for the next game. What songs do I want to lose to next time? So Scarlett wins game number 1 here on Moondance. Game 2 will be over here on Waterfall, one of the smaller maps in the map, as we see Scarlett for a 2nd time in a row opening up with that 15 hatch, trying to deny a hatch block, which wasn't necessary this time around because we actually had a gas first opener coming out of Trigger, which means that he's also not going to scout with that. Now, what does the gas before the gateway provide? It allows your probes to start mining that gas earlier, otherwise you'll have some minor oversaturation in your main base on the minerals. It's not the end of the world if you micro that well, if you go for a no scout, but I mean, there's not like there's anything else to do, but it's nice to have that earlier gas mining going. It allows for a way quicker Stargate that can sometimes go down as early as, I want to say 211, 210, don't forget. Last game that timing was 229, where we saw the Stargate go down. A very, very late Stargate, which would be about 18 seconds slower than what is possible with this type of opener. So just important to note here what that early warp gate research before the Stargate really does to your Oracle timing. And we saw none of these Oracles being very successful in their harassment. I really hated the follow-up that Trigger went for. I mean, it just a lot of early investment into those sentries on a map where flanks are always going to be very possible, like aggressive positions aren't that plentiful. It felt like a bad way to go about it. It's like he had a build order that he thought of on a different map, and then he just tried to play it on Moondance, which honestly didn't really work out. And I don't really like this type of slow-paced play into Colossus anyway. Scarlett played very, very careful with an initially low drone count at 63, 64 drone count on 4 or 5 gases. I mean, that was a mistake if you knew what the observers knew. Ooh. Alright. So that's a robotics facility here. And what does a robotics facility do? It makes immortals, prisms, and disruptors. In no particular order there. I think we're probably going to see a prism first into a disruptor drop, is what I would guess. But I'm not entirely sure on that. I just don't know. Whop. Oh, that's a miss, no? Don't get that. That's literally, it's on the edge. That was legitimately on the edge. That was so close to spotting what it was, but not quite getting it. The fact that it is built towards the back rather than towards the front might reveal that it's not a Stargate though. And as I say that, we do see an Evo chamber being constructed, so maybe Scarlett didn't make a similar read. The reason why I say it is that often if you want to have Oracles with a gas first or with a no scout, like we saw Trigger do here, is you build a Stargate as close to the edge as possible so that your Oracle flies so fast across the map that there might not even be enough queens yet to truly deal with it. Like, the timing is so insanely tight there for Zerg if you build it at the very edge. Like, that's like from here to here is like a 4.5, maybe 5 second flight time, which is kind of big. Like 5 seconds is a big deal. So if you can, you know, just remove that fly time, then that is a great thing. And a lot of Protoss players like doing that, especially Korean ones. Now, we are seeing the Disruptor drop here with that Prism, with the Disruptor as a follow-up. Perhaps we're even seeing Gravitic Drive here as a possibility. It's also completely viable to not go for that. Instead, we're seeing a double Sentry Warp in. And double Sentry Warping just kind of indicates that this is going to be a 2-base all-in behind this. This doesn't feel like it's going to go into a macro variation, as we see no forward gas yet. We see gate 5 and 6 coming down as well. And I think, oh my god, gate 7 as well. Maybe even 8? Can we get 8? An 8 for the man with the hat in the back. No, no. Alright, sold for 7. 7 gateways out, no next Disruptor. It's going to be a Colossus. Okay, this is a very kind of cool style here. That sound plays a lot as well. That initial Disruptor drop into the Colossus. Sometimes he even gets 2 Adepts with this as well. You can drop the Adepts and send them towards the far right side. Then your Disruptor stop over here and your Adepts go around the map and they try to shade in and deal some damage. It can really confuse the Zerg player, but I don't think this is confusing a Zerg player at all. I think right now our Zerg player is very aware of what is going on. Except for... I say that every single time I say something, I'm like, oh, Scarlett definitely is making this read. Now we see Scarlett build 5 drones. It's like, well, that's not ideal. Having +1 is also not quite brilliant if you're playing against the Colossus. I mean, it's nice to have an upgrade, but probably rather have a different upgrade. Maybe like a range upgrade or something if you want to defend with roaches. Would love to see these spores being pushed forward. How many spores do we have? We only have 1. Yeah, you need to push it further forward. That can really delay this type of move out. At least force some units to start attacking that. Is this going to be a defense for Scarlett? I think is a fair question to ask. There's only a single... No, there's 2 gas. 2 gases mining, which means that Ravagers are going to be constructed. This Purification Nova could hit that Ravager. It's not quite what Trigger is doing here. This is very, very all-in. This doesn't have a lot of... Yeah, what doesn't it have, Kevin? Well, it doesn't have a lot of units, actually, that can be reinforced here that are very good against higher Ravager numbers, but apparently that's not really necessary either, because Trigger is just straight up killing Scarlett here, saying, hey, I don't need to go for a very long time. I don't need 3 Disruptors to continuously send in Purification of us. I just want to hit fast, I want to hit hard, and I want to be very decisive in this push-out. And that is really cool to see. Not a lot of high-tech units, but instead just a lot of low-tech units. Just kind of synergizing with this single Colossus, with this single Disruptor that hits absolutely nothing. How many kills do we have on this Disruptor? 14 kills in total still, so it has been worth. A couple of force fields are landing over here. Spore is trying to go for a flank, but isn't really trying, well, hitting anything whatsoever as Scarlett is about to die. Oh my god, was that a dance? Was that a dance? That was a dance, wasn't it? It was subtle, but it was a dance, for sure. Let's go there. Look. We're dancing here. This was... I'm really sure about that. That looked like a dance to me, at least. Yeah. No, that was definitely dance. That was a get out of my game dance. Ooh, cheeky little bad manager. Maybe there's some bad blood between Trigger and Scarlett that I'm not aware of, but that's cool to see. That is kind of interesting. I was not aware of there being any bad blood between these 2 players, but that makes this series so much more interesting. Like, there is no way that you do this unprovoked against a fan favorite like Scarlett. There has to be something there. I don't know what it is, though. That is really interesting. I'm a fan of that. I always like it when there's, like, especially within a region, some type of rivalry. God, I wish I knew what happened. Maybe Scarlett stole too much MMR away from Trigger. Trigger once again, by the way, with a gas first. Not afraid of the 12 pool here whatsoever. Saying, no, my friend, I actually don't care whether you're 12 pooling. Scarlett this time around is going to go for a 16 hatch. So a little bit less safe, but on Data C, getting blocked is fairly uncommon because it's such a large map. It's a large rush distance. So often you're not going to get blocked here. You have that gas first once again. Is it going to be the same opener here? I'd be kind of surprised. I would kind of be surprised. Oi. And it wasn't like a... So you have like the /dance command, right? Which allows your units to dance. But because there's often a little bit of risk involved. And it also takes some time to set it up. Or you might accidentally type something, you know, like this /dance. And then it's a bit embarrassing. So what a lot of pros do instead, if they want the opponent to get out of the game for whatever reason, you just start move commanding your army back and forth. It's showing, hey, I don't need the damage output from my army to beat you. You're dead. Leave my game. And... it's interesting. It is very interesting. It is cool to see. There used to be a time where Bly wouldn't leave any games against me whenever we were in tournaments. And what I would do is I would get as many sentries as I could, and I would hallucinate entire armies. Or I would start building a mothership and recalling on top of his army. I wouldn't kill him on purpose, just so I could pull these moves off, so in the future he would leave faster. And one time I was doing something like that, and then the game was completely over, and I actually ended up almost losing. And ever since then I was like, alright, I'm just gonna kill you every single time. I respect you for staying in. If, you know, if it actually gets you maybe a win 1 out of 100 games, you know, I can kind of respect the grid as well there. So I was like, alright, I'm just gonna finish my games professionally, and I never hallucinated 25 Void Rays ever again against Bly. It's the story of my life. I remember one game on Catalina where I was just constantly aggressively recalling. It's like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if there's a VOD or like a replay of that somewhere. I think Bly also understood it, and I think Bly kind of wanted that to happen. He's like, alright, you go do your crap, and maybe one of these days I'm gonna destroy you. Bly always has been very good at comebacks as well. Ooh, look at this. Scarlett saying, alright, you don't want to scout? You're not gonna respect my tendency to aggression? Then guess what? Yes, I am the massive favorite in this matchup. I don't really give a crap. I'm gonna throw down a Roach Warren. I'm not gonna go, you know, head-to-head with you if you're taking this unfair advantage every single game by going gas first, by not scouting whatsoever, not even chrono boosting any of your gateway units. Like, how greedy really are you? And right now Scarlett is opting to go for a very fast 2-base Roach all-in, which, well, Trigger is fairly unaware of. There's going to be a quick one, that's for sure, because this either works or it doesn't. There's no in-between, really. There's no transition out of this. This is with 2 queens, so oracles are going to stay alive. If Trigger survives, he's winning, because he has these, well, unless he loses like 45 workers, despite him only, it's like minus 10 workers. He's in debt with the probe bank, and he borrows 10 probes, or hallucinates them. Then it would be really bad, but if that isn't the case, then I actually do believe that Scarlett... That Trigger just wins if he holds, as long as he doesn't die. Now, he has a beautiful wall, which can actually be walled with a cybernetic spore behind this. This guy's going to be so late. He's not seeing anything. It's just now. He's like, oh, there's a queen there. I was like, yeah, there's a 3rd base here. Let me just relax for a little bit, go in again. Pom-pidom-pidom. I could potentially warp in a sentry, though. He's not supply blocked, which is nice. There's no Ravagers on the way. Okay, actually killing some workers, and now he should be getting a little bit suspicious. Like, hey, wait a second, where are all your workers? Why do you only have 4 workers in your natural? Oh no, not the adept, not the adept. This pylon is going to get taken out immediately here. These bad boys are going to die as well. And this, oh, that was a real dance right there. That is some actual confidence, because the game isn't even super over. I mean, a Void Ray could still pop out. There could have been batteries going down in the main already. That was a ballsy dance. I like that one a lot. That is showing so much confidence. That is a true get out of my game dance. And look at his 22 supply right now. GG gets called. Trigger leaves the game. And Scarlett with the circling dance. Ooh, into game number 3. And he's on match point right now. Seems like Scarlett is not quite done with the cheeses and the all-ins and says, hey, that last game was fun. That was a Roach all-in. Now I'm going to show you something else. This is what we call the classic 12 pool, which in my mind is a straight up free win against a gas first. So all we're looking at right now, okay, yeah, this is it. Gas first once again, 3rd time in a row here for Trigger. He says, well, what's the chance I'm going to get all in twice in a row? Well, apparently the chance is 100%, because you are in some major trouble right now, my friend. Gateway needs to be built here, but there's not going to be a scout because this is a gas first. And this is really, really bad. I think this is practically game, honestly. Like, this is actually a build order win. Whenever I think of one of the hardest build order wins, this is it. Now, there is a possibility that Trigger has some magical defense. We've seen magical defenses in the past, but it is somewhat unlikely. It is just very unlikely. Scarlett understands what the goals are with this build order. She knows what needs to be done. And right now, she also knows she isn't being scouted, and thus Trigger will not be aware of what's coming for him. Could still go for a late scout, like a post-Cybercore scout, but the problem with that is by the time you see the links, you're supply blocked already. So you can't even build the Zealot anymore. This is an actual fact. Look at this. You get the core. Let's see if we get a core scout or not. No, okay. Not even a core scout. Well, I think this game is just over then. There's actually nothing you can do. So it's going to be 6 links. We'll start attacking the pylon. Then 4... I actually think you just continue building links in this case, don't you? Or do you stop at 12? I'm not entirely sure what the correct call here is. Seems like Scarlett is just going to continue building links again and again and again. Just right-clicking this pylon immediately. We have a big pro pool here coming out. That was a pretty fast pro pool, but is it fast enough? The answer is no, because this pylon just gets blasted. Trigger is trying to go for a full wall, trying to get that surround, but you're losing so much mining time here already. Scarlett, honestly, if Scarlett had built drones behind this, would have been so far ahead right now. It's actually crazy. Now she'll need to do a little bit more because she's continuing to build links, and that actually exposes her to a bit of a risk here, that if all these links do end up dying, there's not actually that many workers here for Scarlett. She took a big risk with this, and I don't actually think it's paying off here. Trigger with an okay-ish hold initially. Yes, usually this would be complete garbage if you lose 5 workers and a lot of mining time, but because so many links were built, this might be a viable defense right now. Okay, it's not a super viable defense, but it's less bad than it should have been. Because usually, and it also only really was 18 links? So there's 4 now, okay, 16 links. So it's like 4 sets more than you, or 3 sets more than you usually see. Usually it would be 3 more drones. But I mean, these last 2 sets of links are not really achieving very much, right? Maybe they get 1 more kill though here. That would be kind of sick. Yeah, there we go. Scarlett with some good control here. Is getting an extractor already. Could potentially go for 1 more probe and will not quite get it. 16 workers against 22. This is very good for our Zerg player. Like I said, this is just basically a build order win. And Trigger managed to survive. That is more than most Protoss players will do here. But yeah, I mean, surviving is not quite good enough in StarCraft 2. Like, that might be good enough in life and good enough for your genetics to pass on, you know. You completed your part of evolution, but in StarCraft 2 that's not how it works. Because you might survive for now, but later on you're just going to get absolutely blasted here. This adept is going to finish up. There's no links here, which means that a couple of drones could end up falling. Of course, with the Queen DPS, it's not like this adept has infinite time, but I mean, 2 worker kills and keeping the adept alive, that is a very reasonable amount of damage that he's dealing here. And might actually end up getting 1 more drone. Nah, Scarlett is microing as well this time around. Okay, 1 more drone, I guess. Kill it! Hello? Shoot the drone. Okay, don't shoot the drone. I don't care about it anyway. Stargate is pretty late and is in a wall that looks terrible. It's of course because the back pylon got taken out and now you have this pylon that you need to start walling with. The reason why Trigger built the pylon here in the wall is because he wanted to completely fully wall out the Zergling. Didn't quite end up managing to do that though. 29 against 38. Third base is late for Scarlett, but so is the Stargate very late here for Trigger. It's actually the ugliest wall I've seen in my entire life. Like legitimately just the ugliest wall I've seen in my entire life. We have 2 creep tumors coming in here. A third one coming down as well. Scarlett, of course, with very good creep spread always, is going to be pushing that extremely far because I don't think there's going to be any reliable pressure that Trigger can put on his opponent right now. I just don't think it's possible. We have a Roach Warren on the way already. I'm not sure if this is like defensive. It's like, hey, I'm afraid of glaives, or if this is, hey, I'm going to kill you by building 8 roaches. These 3 adepts will finish their shade. There's no speed yet, which means that these adepts actually have some potential for damage. And I think Trigger realizes that. It's going to shade in towards the main base. Sadly, there are 2 queens and 6 links there. They shouldn't finish, and it doesn't finish. Third base not quite done yet. Maybe Trigger actually has a chance if he gets his own third base and just goes into a very kind of solid macro game, kind of defensive setup here with, you know, getting 3-4 oracles. I think wouldn't even be that bad. Try to deal some damage with those oracles. Try to, you know, have a good solid defense and deny a lot of creep. The moment you deny a lot of creep against Zerg, it is very difficult for the Zerg to kill you without building Hydras. And the moment the Zerg builds Hydras, you can just go into Disruptors defensively and go into a longer game. You just stay on 4 base forever, basically. That's going to be the plan here. This is absolutely terrible, this wall. Not quite sure why we're doing this. This is just going to deny your own mining. This makes absolutely no sense. This is like building a wall around you so no one can kill you, and then realizing there's no way to get food in there, so you just die out of hunger. It's like, yeah, it's like, why would you build a base if you're completely walling off the ability to mine? Even these 2 pylons are already quite, you know, intrusive into the mining process. This is not good. Please don't do that. What is this? Maybe finish off the wall over here? Imagine mining from this patch. You need to literally go around the world to get to the Nexus. This is not efficient at all. This is not efficient. We have Pneumatized Carapace coming in. This is going to be a queen drop with a bunch of roaches. No glial reconstitution is being researched. I think this game is completely over here. I just don't really see a way for Scarlett to lose this. And Like, I see no way for Trigger to hold this. So the only thing that could happen is if Scarlett completely throws it out of the window. And even there, I don't see a way how, like... There's no battery in the natural. There's no units with big damage output. No Disruptor, no Immortal. There's no Void Rays. So it's not possible that the anti-air gets killed. It's not possible that all the roaches die because there's just not enough damage output. There's no cannons. We now have a Templar Archives on the way. I mean, there's okay production. So maybe 4 Stalkers. That's a start. Okay, maybe if Scarlett forgets to drop the Queens for the next 30 seconds. Morphing in 6 Ravagers. Right in Trigger's face. Look at that. I mean, there's just nothing here whatsoever. Queens are going to start dropping right now as well. We have these Overlords pooping all in between the natural and the third base of Trigger. The Queens poop in a Creep Tumor here as well. This is very exciting and also fairly over, honestly. And I'm just waiting for this moment. Oh, that's an Overseer, just making sure that there's no DPs. That would be one way to actually lose or to be in trouble a little bit. I think this game is completely over. I'm waiting for the dance right now. G. No dance. Was there a... I always gotta check, you know, was there maybe a drone on the way here for a potential macro hatch on the other side of the map? No, it doesn't seem to be the case. Scarlett says, okay, you dance once against me, I'll dance once against you, and that will be it. No more manner tricks after this. And yeah, GG gets called. Interesting game, or well, interesting series, but mainly interesting because apparently there's some drama in North America. I love to see it. I'm a big drama fiend, of course. I love to hear when two people don't get along and dance against each other. Makes the next time they play against each other a lot more interesting as well. And also makes me more interested in the rise of Trigger, you know? Right now Scarlett still looks a lot stronger than Trigger, but maybe in 6 months from now that is the other way around. And then, you know, we have a new chapter here. And yeah, stay tuned for that, for sure. Thanks all so much for watching. Hope you did enjoy this video, this best of 5. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see all of you next time for a new video. Thank you, and bye-bye.